From the moment he stepped through the gleaming glass doors of Leclerc's bistro, Jordan Miles could feel the tension crackle in the air. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. But it was there. Heads turned. Eyes flicked over him. Some diners offered quick, polite smiles before hurriedly looking away, while others didn't even bother to hide their curiosity or their judgment. Jordan was used to it. Dressed in a crisp, tailored button-down and clean black slacks, he looked every bit the professional. Not flashy, not loud, just sharp. Still, to some people, none of that ever mattered. And sure enough, before he could even take another step inside, a waiter broke away from behind the host's stand and approached him. The man was tall and thin, his slicked-back hair shining under the soft golden lights. He moved with a kind of smugness, the fake smile stretched across his face, doing nothing to hide the disdain in his eyes. "Can I help you?" the waiter asked, voice tight and clipped. Jordan offered a polite smile. "Table for one, please." The waiter raised a single eyebrow, giving Jordan a slow, deliberate once-over. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't kind. "I'm sorry, sir," the waiter said, forcing a chuckle like Jordan had just made some sort of joke. "We do have a dress code. You might feel more comfortable somewhere, a little less formal." Jordan's smile didn't falter. He was no stranger to these little games. Still, a part of him had hoped this place would be different. "I believe I'm dressed appropriately," he said calmly. "I'd like a table." For a long, uncomfortable moment, the waiter just stared at him, like he was hoping Jordan would get embarrassed and walk out. But Jordan didn't move. With a quiet, frustrated sigh, the waiter grabbed a menu from the stand and gestured for Jordan to follow. He didn't lead him toward the sunlit windows or the cozy alcoves by the fireplace. No, he marched Jordan straight to the worst seat in the house, a cramped little table right by the swinging kitchen doors, where the noise and bustle never stopped. It was a seat nobody wanted. A seat reserved for people the restaurant didn't want to be seen. Jordan said nothing. He simply pulled out the chair, sat down, and opened the menu with a quiet grace that made the waiter's sneer falter for half a second. Then the man turned on his heel and vanished. Jordan waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15. All around him, the restaurant buzzed with life. Waiters bustled back and forth, laying out bread baskets and pouring sparkling water. Laughter floated through the air. Not once did anyone come to his table. When Jordan managed to catch the waiter's eye across the room, the man quickly looked away, almost theatrically busying himself with another table. At one point, Jordan noticed the waiter leaning in to whisper something to a coworker. The other server chuckled, glancing over at Jordan before quickly turning back around. Jordan knew exactly what was happening. And yet he stayed. Because Jordan Miles hadn't come to Leclerc's bistro just to enjoy a nice meal. He had a purpose. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the waiter made his way back over, menu in hand, fake smile back in place. "Have you decided what you'd like?" he asked, his voice dripping with condescension. Jordan closed the menu carefully and looked up at him, a steady calm in his gaze. "Yes," he said smoothly. "I think I know exactly what I want." But what Jordan was about to order wasn't printed anywhere on the menu. And the waiter? He had no idea what was coming. Jordan set the menu aside, folding his hands calmly on the table. The waiter, whose name tag read Travis, tapped his pen impatiently against his notepad, clearly itching to move on. He didn't even try to hide his irritation anymore. "Well," Travis prodded, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. Jordan glanced around the dining room. Elegant chandeliers sparkled overhead. The polished marble floors gleamed underfoot. The clink of glasses and the low murmur of conversation filled the air. It really was a beautiful place. Shame about the service. "I'll start with a glass of your house red," Jordan said, voice even. "And I'll need a few more minutes to decide on my entree." Travis scribbled something on his notepad, if he wrote anything at all, and walked off without another word. Jordan leaned back in his chair, eyes scanning the restaurant. From where he sat, he could see the general manager, a heavy-set man in a navy suit, making his rounds, greeting certain tables with wide smiles and firm handshakes. Jordan caught him glancing over once, frowning when he noticed Jordan sitting alone by the kitchen. But just as quickly, the manager looked away. Jordan smiled to himself. It was always fascinating, he thought, how quickly people judged. How easily they revealed themselves when they thought no one important was watching. Minutes passed. No wine arrived. Instead, Jordan watched as Travis lingered by another table, laughing and chatting with a group of well-dressed diners. He poured wine for them, the very bottle Jordan had asked for, then moved on, still ignoring Jordan entirely. It wasn't an accident. It was a message. Jordan stayed quiet, his patience steady, though a lesser man might have caused a scene by now. But Jordan had learned long ago that sometimes silence could be far more powerful than shouting. He waited and waited. 25 minutes after ordering, Travis finally returned, carrying a glass of red wine with all the care of someone delivering an old shoe. He plopped it onto the table without a word. The wine splashed up the side of the glass. Jordan raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Instead, he took a slow sip, studying Travis over the rim of the glass. There was an awkward beat of silence before Travis cleared his throat. "Ready to order yet?" he asked, his tone making it clear he hoped Jordan would just pick something cheap and leave. Jordan smiled, that same quiet, unreadable smile that had started to make Travis visibly uncomfortable. "I'll have the filet mignon," Jordan said, closing his menu gently. Travis smirked, like he'd been expecting that. "You sure?" he asked. "It's not exactly inexpensive." The words hung in the air, sharp and insulting. Jordan simply nodded. "I'm sure." With a dramatic sigh, Travis scribbled the order down and walked away, muttering something under his breath. Jordan sat back once more, swirling his wine slowly in the glass. From across the room, a few other servers cast glances toward his table, some curious, some pitying. He could almost hear their thoughts. What's he doing here? Does he even belong in a place like this? How long before they kick him out? Jordan didn't mind. They would all know soon enough. And when they did, they'd remember this moment. The way they treated him. The way they looked at him. The way they dismissed him. Because Jordan Miles wasn't just another face passing through. He was someone they should have been welcoming, respecting. Instead, they had made a terrible, terrible mistake. And soon, the whole restaurant was going to find out exactly who he was. The restaurant buzzed on around Jordan as he waited for his meal, sipping his wine slowly, watching. He noticed the subtle changes first. A few waiters glanced nervously in his direction now, whispering behind hands. Even the general manager, who had previously ignored him, started sneaking second looks across the dining room. Something was shifting. Something small, but important. Jordan smiled to himself. It always started this way, without creeping in like a slow leak. After all, what kind of man sits patiently, ignored and mistreated, without causing a scene? What kind of man endures it with a quiet, almost regal composure? The kind of man who might just have more power than anyone realized. Across the room, Travis leaned against the bar, laughing at something the bartender said. But his laughter was forced now, tied around the edges. Every so often, he glanced back at Jordan's table, uncertainty flickering across his face. Jordan caught him looking once, held his gaze. Travis quickly looked away. It wasn't long before the general manager made his way over to the bar, speaking to Travis in a low, urgent tone. Jordan couldn't hear the words, but he saw Travis stiffen slightly, then nod. A minute later, Travis approached Jordan's table again, a different energy clinging to him, more cautious now, less smug. "Your filet will be ready shortly," he said, voice more formal this time. "Would you like anything else while you wait?" Jordan set his glass down carefully. "No," he said. "I'm fine." Travis hesitated. There was a faint sheen of sweat on his forehead now. "Of course, sir," he said quickly, backing away. Jordan watched him retreat and shook his head slightly. It was almost too easy. He leaned back in his chair, savoring the moment. From the corner of his eye, he noticed a woman, an older lady sitting at a corner table, watching him with a puzzled expression. She whispered something to her husband, who frowned and pulled out his phone, tapping away. Within seconds, the man was looking back at Jordan with wide, almost panicked eyes. Jordan chuckled under his breath. He knew exactly what was happening. It wouldn't be long now. The couple weren't the only ones growing curious. More and more diners began sneaking glances at him, murmuring to each other, their curiosity piqued. Something about the way Jordan carried himself, the quiet confidence, the calm patience, it unsettled people who were used to being in control. Across the room, the general manager wiped his hands nervously on his jacket and started toward Jordan's table. Jordan didn't move. He simply waited, letting the man come to him. "Good evening, sir," the manager said, his voice oily with sudden politeness. "I just wanted to personally welcome you to Leclerc's. I hope everything has been to your satisfaction." Jordan looked up slowly, meeting the manager's gaze. There was a flicker of fear in the man's eyes now, like he knew he had already lost but was scrambling to pretend otherwise. Jordan gave him a small, measured smile. "It's been enlightening," he said simply. The manager chuckled awkwardly, missing the undertone completely. "Well, if there's anything you need, anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask." Jordan nodded once. "I appreciate that," he said, his tone polite but distant. The manager lingered for a second longer, visibly uncomfortable, before backing away, shooting a sharp look at Travis as he passed. Moments later, Travis reappeared with Jordan's plate, setting it down with shaky hands. "Your filet mignon, sir. Cooked medium rare, as requested." Jordan glanced at the steak. It looked perfect, but he barely touched it. Because right now, food was the last thing on his mind. Right now, it was all about the lesson. And they were just beginning to realize who had walked through their doors. Jordan took his time. He cut a small piece of steak, savoring a single bite, while the tension in the room thickened around him like smoke. Across the dining area, diners whispered behind napkins. Waiters stole glances. The general manager lingered by the bar, pretending to review something on a clipboard, but his eyes kept darting nervously toward Jordan's table. Jordan let them sweat, let them wonder. Finally, after another long minute, he placed his utensils neatly on the plate and reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a simple black leather folder and placed it on the table. The small golden emblem stamped in the corner was hard to miss. At first, nobody noticed. But then the couple in the corner, the ones who had Googled him earlier, caught sight of it. The woman gasped audibly, clutching her husband's arm. A ripple of whispers moved through the room. It didn't take long for Travis to catch the change in atmosphere. He turned, saw Jordan calmly tapping the folder against the table, and paled. Jordan caught the motion from the corner of his eye and smiled inwardly. It was time. He raised a hand, motioning for the general manager to come over. The man practically stumbled over himself getting to the table, his nervous smile barely holding together. "Yes, sir." "How can I assist you?" he asked, voice cracking slightly. Jordan opened the folder slowly, revealing a thick sheaf of documents, neatly printed and official-looking. He tapped a specific page with one finger. The manager leaned down to read, and froze. His eyes widened. His mouth opened slightly, as if to speak, but no words came out. Because right there, plain as day, were the words. "Ownership transfer agreement, Leclerc's Bistro. Signed. Sealed. Effective today." Jordan waited, giving the man time to absorb what he was seeing. Finally, he spoke, voice low and calm. "I'm Jordan Miles," he said, making sure his words carried through the suddenly silent dining room. "And as of this morning, I'm the new owner of Leclerc's Bistro." A hush fell over the restaurant. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Glasses clinked softly as hands trembled. And Travis? Travis looked like he might pass out. The general manager stammered, "Sir, I had no idea. If I had known, we would have—" Jordan held up a hand, silencing him. "That's the problem," he said, voice cutting through the air like a blade. "You treat people based on who you think they are, not who they actually are." He turned slightly, addressing not just the manager, but the whole restaurant. "Respect shouldn't be reserved for those you believe are important. It should be given freely to everyone." The words hung there, heavy and unanswerable. Travis took a shaky step forward, his face a mask of panic. "Yes, sir, I apologize," he stuttered. "I didn't mean—" Jordan looked at him coolly. "You didn't mean to get caught," he said. "That's not the same thing." Travis opened his mouth again, but the general manager quickly stepped in, casting a furious glare at him. "You're dismissed, Travis," the manager said sharply. Immediately, Travis stared, stunned. What? "You heard me. Go." Defeated, Travis slinked away, head bowed, as the rest of the restaurant watched in stunned silence. Jordan rose from his seat slowly, straightening his jacket. He wasn't angry. He wasn't loud. He didn't have to be. His presence, his dignity, said everything that needed to be said. And as he walked toward the front doors, Every single person in that restaurant shifted awkwardly in their seats, pretending not to stare but utterly unable to look away. They would remember him. They would remember what had happened here today. And they would think twice, next time, about judging someone based on the color of their skin. Jordan paused just before reaching the front doors. He could feel the weight of 100 eyes pressing against his back. The clink of glasses and the quiet murmur of conversation had vanished. The whole restaurant was frozen, caught somewhere between shame and disbelief. He turned slowly, facing the room one last time. Calm, composed, unshakable. The general manager stood rigid by the bar, looking like he wanted to crawl under it. The servers hovered nearby, wide-eyed and silent. And the diners, the same ones who had ignored him, judged him, whispered about him, now sat stiffly in their velvet chairs, unable to meet his gaze. Jordan looked at them all, and then he smiled. A real smile this time. Not out of spite, not out of pride, but out of the quiet satisfaction of knowing that today he hadn't just bought a restaurant. He had taught them something they wouldn't soon forget. I won't be making any major changes yet, Jordan said, his voice steady but carrying easily across the room. But there's one thing I want everyone, staff and guests, to understand. He let the words hang for a beat. In this place, he continued, everyone will be treated with respect. Not because of the title they hold. Not because of the clothes they wear. Not because of the color of their skin. He swept the room with his eyes. But because they are human beings. And that's enough. The silence was absolute. Somewhere near the kitchen, a young waiter, one who hadn't sneered or whispered, one who had simply done his job, smiled faintly, nodding to himself. Jordan caught it, and he nodded back. Without another word, he turned and pushed open the doors, stepping into the late afternoon sun. The warm breeze brushed against his face as he walked down the front steps, the sound of the city rising up around him. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Inside, the whispers would start again. Not of judgment, not of mockery, but of respect, of regret, and of a lesson learned the hard way. Jordan Miles, the man they had dismissed, ignored, and disrespected, had turned out to be the most important person in the room. And deep down, every single one of them knew they would never forget the day they made the mistake of treating the wrong man like he didn't belong. Not because he demanded their respect, but because he showed them, with grace, patience, and unshakable dignity, that he had earned it all along.